Voting Liberal comes with consequences, Canada. Mark Carney promised he was the only one that would be able to deal with Donald Trump. Well, buckle up, because those promises are turning into a massive disappointment. Tariffs just hit 45%. 45% on softwood lumber on Canada. It starts in 2 weeks from now. We went from 14.5% when Mark Carney became prime minister on softwood lumber, and today we find out it is now 45%. What about the rest of the world? Are they at 45%? No, they're at 10%. It's only Canada that's getting destroyed. It is now cheaper to send planks of lumber from Europe to the United States than it is from Canada. Just across the border, a small little truck full of lumber is cheaper to get it on a boat, put it inside a plane, get it to the United States, and it's still cheaper to get it from the rest of the world. And why is Donald Trump doing this? We're going to get into it in this report. And the 45% tariffs are at record territory, folks. Mills across Canada are about to go dark. Is it just me, or does it feel like there's been zero negotiations and it's instead we get a spectacular faceplant failure? Tariffs are up more today than they've ever been ever since Mark Carney became prime minister. We have zero, and I mean absolutely zero, wins with this brand new prime minister. Canada is about to get wrecked. Let's get into this report. Here's Mark Carney in March explaining to Canadians we have Donald Trump exactly where we want him.
To put us in a strong position. See, this is a fundamental mistake that the Americans are making. They think they will weaken us. They think that they can own us, quite frankly. That's what they think. We are going to get stronger. We are going to wait this out. They're going to come to the table, and we're going to negotiate a good deal for the Canadians.
Just so you know, Mark Carney's only been face-to-face with Donald Trump twice. Once in May, he went down to the White House, and we all know how that one went. And the second time was at the G7. And Donald Trump left early. Yeah, it was a complete disaster. Since then, Mark Carney says he's been texting Donald Trump all the time. Well, I don't believe him. I want to see those text messages. Every single promise we got from Mark Carney has ended up being a lie.
Well, if we look at Mr. Carney's rhetoric during the campaign, and then we judge him by what his actions have been since the campaign, it's basically the complete opposite of what he promised Canadians during the campaign. He campaigned on, we'll have our elbows up, we're going to drop our gloves when someone challenges us. But every single decision that Prime Minister Carney has made since the campaign has been completely the opposite. He has given many concessions to the Americans, yet it is unclear whether we've gotten anything in return. Maybe that's why President Trump basically endorsed Mr. Carney during the campaign and said he didn't really like Pierre Poilievre that much, because we would have been maybe more difficult to negotiate with.
You know what the problem with these liberals is they feel the solution to everything is bailouts and subsidies for all tariff-affected sectors. Their philosophy and values is upside down. Because where does all that money come from to prop up all these failing sectors? Debt. Record amount of debt. Check out Yves Blanchet today.
To that, I must add that the federal government has surrendered everything. Anybody can check. Counter tariffs, frontiers, defense, taxes on the giants of the web, and now opening to some negotiations, which of course are not good for Quebecers and Canadians. And Mr. Carney, who has been elected, saying, I'm the new hero. I'll come from the sky with a cape. I will start negotiation 1 week before the election. I will fix the tariffs, and I will start a negotiation for a new trade agreement. 6 months later, we have seen nothing of it. Nothing of it. And I will remind to everybody that those projects that he wants to go forward with against the rules and the provinces and Quebec will not change the economy of Canada before years after Mr. Trump is no more President of the United States. So some questions have to start being asked quite seriously.
There's a reason that Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney as prime minister. 91% of all his net worth is located in the United States. How much of his net worth is located in Canada? 0.5%. That means if Canada ceases to exist, blows up, is gone, it doesn't affect Mark Carney's net worth. It has now been disclosed. Oh boy, that Mark Carney's conflicts of interest don't matter because of a loophole. So he could straight up enrich himself, make him the richest person in Canada by positioning all of these projects to enrich his own pockets with zero repercussions.
It's interesting because Carney himself has come under some heat for conflict of interest. I'm sure that's some of your concern here.
Mr. Carney has already participated in decisions that affect Brookfield, this huge conglomerate company which he was on the board of and owns stock options in. So he has shares, investments in this huge company that affects 103 other companies, according to a statement that he set up with the ethics commissioner. And then he also has financial investments in 550 other companies. And so pretty much every time Mark Carney makes a decision that affects business or participates in any discussion about a matter that would affect business, he's in a financial conflict of interest. But the Act says he's allowed to do that as long as what he's talking about applies generally. And again, 99% of what they would be talking about would be about changing a general law, a general tax. And so the law essentially exempts him from this financial conflict of interest, even though he has it. And that's a very dangerous situation. It essentially allows him to do what we've seen Donald Trump do in the States, which is profit from his own position as prime minister by making decisions that'll help all the companies he's invested in, Brookfield especially, and then their share prices go up and his investment value of his investments goes up. So that's how wide open it is. It's the sad joke of a law, and we need the law loopholes closed. And we need the code reenacted by Carney so that very strong and strict rules apply that ensure ethical government decision makings and ensure that cabinet ministers can't and the prime minister can't profit from their own decision.
Do you actually believe he's going to enact the rules and change them? I don't think so. The only reason that he became prime minister is because he knew there was a loophole and he would be able to exploit everybody in our tax dollars in order to enrich himself with Brookfield. It's all coming to fruition, Canada. It's all getting exposed in real time. Mark Carney's profile has been updated at the World Economic Forum right here, and it shows that he was a board of directors for Bloomberg as well as Brookfield Asset Management. It also mentions that he was the advisor for Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau during the C19 event, as well as the Liberal Party's Economic Growth Task Force September 2024, before Justin Trudeau resigned. And yeah, we all know what happened after that. But how much money did he make before becoming prime minister? It looks like he was earning around $2 million USD as the vice chair of head of Brookfield Management, as well as $1.5 million USD for Bloomberg. That means he was making like $5 million a year in these positions. Why would he take a pay cut? Just to be generous, let's just get a pay cut and make only $400,000 a year as a prime minister. Yeah, right. Working as a director in Brookfield, do you honestly believe he cares for Canada that much to get a 90% pay cut and make $400,000 a year as a prime minister? No. The only reason that he would make such a move is because he knew he would be making billions of dollars with his conflicts of interest that are no conflict of interest because of a loophole. Donald Trump warned Canadians a long time ago at the beginning of this year that he was going to use economic force in order to annex Canada. No one was paying attention. He talked about lumber as well, January 7th.
The leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't care.
You had suggested
Listen, I don't care what he says.
But Sir Lopez, you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber. We have to unrestrict them because stupid people put, restrictions on, but I can do that with an executive order. We don't need anything they have. We don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, what would happen if we didn't subsidize you, if we didn't, because we give them a lot of money. We help them. As an example, we're buying icebreakers, and Canada wants to join us in the buying of icebreakers. I said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. We don't need a partner. But no right. Nope. No right.
And here's Donald Trump yesterday.
And Canada called me a couple of weeks ago. They want to be part of it. To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free. So I don't know if that made a big impact, but it does make a lot of sense. It actually makes, because they're having a hard time up there in Canada now, because as you know, with tariffs, everyone's coming into our country. We have more investment than we've ever had before, $17 trillion coming in. As an example, in 4 years, Biden didn't have $1 trillion. We have 17 trillion more than that in 8 months coming in.
It's starting to become more clear. Look, we're almost at $100 billion in deficit spending per year, and we're about to go over the cliff as the PBO has described. I'm starting to think that Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney because he wants Canada to become the 51st state, and Mark Carney is handing it to him on a silver platter. While at the same time, Mark Carney is removing Canadians' firearms and also putting forward this Bill C-8 in order to strip away the internet access of people that are calling out this government and sounding the alarm to this whole thing, providing the truth to Canadian citizens. This is the first reading and it's coming down the pipe. And not too long ago, the Liberals defended internet access as a human right. That is about to go out the door. And once someone is deleted, you'll never know it because they're under a gag order.
We want to bring through an aggressive emissions cap that would essentially shut in 2 million barrels a day of our production and cost us $12 billion.
It's a production.
It's a production cap.
Notwithstanding that they say emissions, it is about controlling the production.
The emissions cap.
We've just witnessed the Carney Liberals vote in favor of keeping the oil and gas production cap. Every Liberal just voted to keep in Justin Trudeau's policy of capping the production of Canadian oil and gas. What does that mean? It means Mark Carney has decided to keep the failed Liberal policy that chased away billions of dollars of investment in the Canadian energy sector. The Parliamentary Budget Officer, the independent budget watchdog, estimates that this policy will cost the Canadian economy $20 billion in lost GDP. There's an announcement this week. TC Energy, used to be called TransCanada Energy, investing $8.5 billion in the energy sector in the United States. Keeping this production cap in place will mean more stories like TC Energy, Canadian companies taking investment dollars out of Canada, investing in the United States. It also will mean lost jobs. At a time when employment is going up, as young people struggle to find work, this production cap will kill thousands of opportunities for young men and women going into the skilled trades. It'll also deprive provincial governments of much needed revenue collected in royalties to pay for roads, schools, and hospitals. Today's vote proves that Mark Carney is just trying to pull another bait and switch, saying one thing during the election when he needed Canadians' votes, pretending that he would do things differently from Justin Trudeau, but after the election, when the chips are down, when the vote is taken in the House of Commons, he stands up and does exactly the same thing that Liberals have been doing for the last 10 years, attacks our energy sector, and votes to keep our oil and gas in the ground.
You see, if Canada wanted to defend ourselves against Donald Trump and becoming the 51st state, what we would do is immediately remove all the anti-energy policies. Immediately. We would remove the emissions cap. We would get rid of the tanker ban. We would get rid of C-69. We would get rid of all the restrictions keeping the oil in the ground. That way, we could start selling our product to the world, and we would not be so weak against Donald Trump and his tariffs. But the Liberals, they're going full steam ahead with these restrictions, which in turn is going to make us so weak, we're going to beg to become the 51st state. But Donald Trump knows this, and I believe Mark Carney knows this. He's giving Donald Trump everything on a silver platter, and it's because he's the most conflicted prime minister in Canadian history, with all his assets located in the United States. So if we crumble and fall apart and donate our country to the 51st state, it's going to make him a multi-billionaire. Let's go back to the lumber situation. BC Premier has just issued this statement on Section 232 tariff decision from the United States on our softwood lumber, bringing the tariff rate to 45% by October 14th. This is David Eby's statement. Let's be clear, these tariffs on our lumber have nothing to do with a national security. They are economic assault targeting BC families in the United States. They're designed to distract, but will actually raise prices for U.S. consumers. And I agree, they're going to be paying a lot more for their lumber. BC will stand with our forest workers at the same time as diversify our economy. There are other countries that want BC lumber, and together we'll build a stronger future for our BC forest workers. The problem is BC is running a $11.9 billion deficit this year. We've had 4 credit downgrades. We're going to get another credit downgrade next year by Moody's, meaning that our debt is going to cost that much more, and they can't tax us any further. And David Eby has been against an oil pipeline in the north, saying we don't need it. We need to maximize what we already have. What he doesn't understand is it takes 5 years in order to build an increased pump system for the system we currently have with TMX. 5 years to build extra capacity, bringing our total from 800,000 barrels to 1.2 million barrels per day. We're not even starting that project. And by the time that project starts, it takes at least 5 years to build a new pipeline, meaning we should be building the new pipeline today so that in 5 years from now, there will be a market for that new pipeline, guaranteed. So what BC is doing right now is we're giving a 2-month pause on timber harvest bill payments, as if that's going to actually save anything. How long is Canada going to be able to survive? Because our number one customer, 78% of all our product goes down to the United States, and we have a 50% tariff on copper, aluminum, steel, 45% tariff on softwood lumber starting October 14th, 35% tariff on non-US MCA compliant goods, 30% tariff on furniture, etc. starting January 1st, 25% tariff on auto and auto parts, 10% energy products and potash, 17% on dairy when you go over the quotas. Plus, Donald Trump wants us to pay $65 billion for the Golden Dome. This is unsustainable, Canada. As long as these are still in place, we're not going to be able to diversify fast enough in order to recover. We are heading off the edge of the cliff. And we're also in a financial mess. If you take a look since 2015, we've literally doubled our deficit compared to every single prime minister combined. We started out in 2015 at $1 billion, then it just exploded. And now this year we're projected to be $65 billion, but that is not including a $20 billion cut. They have to cut $20 billion somehow. We haven't seen the budget, meaning they might not be able to do that. This could easily be $100 billion. It could be $100 billion next year. It could be $100 billion the year after that. It could be actually significantly higher than that because our economy is going to need help. Yeah, remember they said these subsidies and helping all of these businesses survive? They're going to have to open up the printing presses like we've never seen before. That precipice, remember the precipice from our PBO office? It's coming. It's coming, and we're seeing the edge of the cliff. And all the Liberals have to do is remove all the anti-energy policies, and we will flourish. But they're not going to do that. So it really makes you wonder, if they're not going to remove all the anti-energy policies for our country to literally flourish, we could be the richest country on planet Earth. But we have a liberal government that thinks that we could get to net zero while having an economic war with the United States, our #1 customer, thinks we could diversify our trade with the rest of the world in no time. Like tomorrow, we could just buy all these ships and be able to ship to the rest of the world, and we're able to survive this storm. They are in fantasy land. But maybe, just maybe, the whole point is to elect Mark Carney and become the 51st state. And that's why Donald Trump said, I rather a liberal. I kind of like this Mark Carney guy because in reality, that's what Donald Trump wants all along. And these elbows up voters fell for it. And they clapped all along thinking Mark Carney was an economic genius and was going to be able to save Canada, when in fact, he is going to be the reason that we become the 51st state. That's it for today's report. What do you think? Is this the plan all along? Elect a liberal-led government and become the 51st state? Because it's becoming more apparent every day that's where we're heading. We're at the precipice. We're looking over the cliff's edge, and we have the most incompetent government in Canadian history. Oh boy. I'll see you on the next report.